All right. So, I'm gonna go ahead and present my screen. There should be a new assignment. It's called what's it called? Black Cowboy Wild Horses. All right. A lot of these stories are about horses. You guys notice that? Yeah. All right. So under ELA, we have our new story, Black Cowboy Wild Horses. What? I didn't write the book, so I can't make it what it is. I don't know. A lot of people have horses. Well, I'm gonna just say this. The sign said it, but the numbers did not say it. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but so let's go ahead and get our new story opened up. Black Cowboy Wild Horses. We're gonna work on this story for 2 days, and then we'll take the test on Wednesday, and then do that presentation assignment on Thursday and Friday, and into the next week if you need it. But plenty of time to just kind of start working on things next week, getting caught up. So, the story is about 12 minutes long. By Julius Lester. We're going to start like we usually do with the concept vocabulary and get to know some of the words that we're going to see throughout our story. So I'm going to hide the top part right here. Give you guys about 1 more minute to get into that story, please. All right. Let's go ahead and look at our concept vocabulary. So under making meaning, we have our first part with concept vocabulary. I'm going to open that up. If it decides to open, there we go. And we have 3 vocabulary words that we're going to see in this story. So let's start with milled. Any ideas what milled means? There could be a couple of things that this one is. So I don't know which type they're asking for. Okay, kind of, yeah. So like a mill is like, yeah, like on a farm you have like things that are milled, like a windmill will go in circles, right? So it's milling something to kind of create electricity and energy. And then there's also like I milled around. Any idea what that one might be? Kind of. You're like walking, just kind of wandering about. So there's 2 meanings to this word. The one that this one we'll talk about is to move around in a confused way. So the second one we just talked about. You're just kind of walking around, don't really have like a general direction. You're not like on a mission. You're just like, I'm gonna wander around, look around a little bit, I guess. A lot of people do this in like clothing stores. Like you go to Walmart and you're looking around for clothes, you're just kind of milling around and looking. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Our next one, skittered. What does it mean to skitter somewhere? Kind of, yeah, but what's another way to say that? To run somewhere, to get somewhere quickly, to skedaddle, to get out of there. Stuff along those lines. So to move lightly or quickly. You kind of go really quick, but lightly. Like a mouse. Mice will skitter places. And they skitter around. And then finally we have quivering. What does it mean to quiver? That's really close. It's kind of like shaking. You're shaking. You're kind of like tense, and when you quiver, you're like shaking a little bit. Usually you're nervous when you're quivering. So, trembling or shivering. Good. So those are 3 words that we're going to see. As we're reading, we'll hear them in context with the story, right? So, there's our concept vocabulary. We're not going to fill out any of the notebooks. That's okay. We're going to skip the notebooks like we normally do. But I'm going to open up the first read really quick and just look at the chart so that we can look at what we're going to look for as we read through it for the first time. So in our first read, we're going to answer the who the story was about, what happens, where it happens, when it happens, and why people react the way that they do in the story. So the who, what, when, where, why. The 5 W's. Then we're going to annotate. We'll probably do one thing that you found really important in the story. So as we're reading, if something is like, oh, that sounds important, highlight that. Okay? Our next one is to connect it to things that we've already read, things you might already know about. We have read stories about horses before in the past couple of weeks, so maybe you can connect it to that stuff. And then again, we will write our 2 to 3 sentence summary, just like we normally do. I guess it's only the second one. I guess I feel like we've been talking about horses a lot lately. I don't know why. But that will be the chart we fill out after we read it. So we're going to go ahead and read through it first. So, Mr. Turner does talk about horses a lot. That is true. Huh? I mean, he hears it in all of the classes, so probably. So, let's go ahead and we're going to start with the background, just to kind of hear the background information about how this story was written or what it's about, as well as learn about the author. So this might be a little bit loud. For those of you online, I have it up all the way. So I'm going to start it in 3, 2, 1.
Black Cowboy, Wild Horses by Julius Lester. Short story. Background. When Spanish explorers came to the Americas, they brought domesticated horses with them. Over time, some of these horses escaped into the wild, where they formed untamed herds and eventually spread west across the Great Plains. These wild horses became known as Mustangs. Born a slave in 1848, Texas cowboy Robert Lemons became a legend in his day by developing and perfecting his unique method of catching these wild horses. About the author. Julius Lester, born 1939, died 2018, a native of St. Louis, Missouri, has been a folk singer, a civil rights photographer, a writer, and a professor of African American Studies and Judaic Studies. His works include novels, stories, poetry, nonfiction, and a memoir.
All right. So, the little background information here is pretty important. So we have when Spanish explorers came to America, they brought some domesticated horses with them. What does domesticated mean?
Like trained.
Trained, right? They're tame. They use them to ride places, right?
Yeah.
And then over time, those Spanish explorers lost control of those horses, and they went into the wild, spread across the United States and stuff like that, and they became wild horses. Those of you that know stuff about horses, are all wild horses typically called Mustangs? No? I don't know. That was a real question. I have no idea.
I don't know. I don't have horses.
I don't have horses either. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe we'll look it up later. But this is about wild horses, as the title says, so keep that in mind. We're going to go ahead and start with listening to it. Hopefully you guys can all hear it. So, it's kind of a longer story, so try and keep your mind focused on it, please. And here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Black Cowboy, Wild Horses by Julius Lester. First light. Bob Lemons rode his horse slowly up the rise. When he reached the top, he stopped at the edge of the bluff. He looked down at the corral where the other cowboys were beginning the morning chores, then turned away
and stared at the land stretching as wide as love in every direction. The sky was curved, as if it were a lap on which the earth lay napping like a curled cat. High above, a hawk was suspended on cold threads of unseen winds. Far, far away, at what looked to be the edge of the world, land and sky kissed. He guided Warrior, his black stallion, slowly down the bluff. When they reached the bottom, the horse reared, eager to run across the vastness of the plains until he reached forever. Bob smiled and patted him gently on the neck. "Easy, easy," he whispered. "We'll have time for that, but not yet." He let the horse trot for a while, then slowed him and began peering intently at the ground, as if looking for the answer to a question he scarcely understood. It was late afternoon when he saw them, the hoofprints of mustangs, the wild horses that lived on the plains. He stopped, dismounted, and walked around carefully until he had seen all the prints. Then he got down on his hands and knees to examine them more closely. Some people learned from books. Bob had been a slave and never learned to read words, but he could look at the ground and read what animals had walked on it, their size and weight, when they had passed by, and where they were going. No one he knew could bring in mustangs by themselves, but Bob could make horses think he was one of them, because he was. He stood, reached into his saddlebag, took out an apple, and gave it to Warrior, who chewed with noisy enthusiasm. It was a herd of 8 mares, a colt, and a stallion. They had passed there 2 days ago. He would see them soon, but he needed to smell of sun, moon, stars, and wind before the mustangs would accept him. The sun went down, and the chilly night air came quickly. Bob took the saddle, saddlebag, and blanket off Warrior. He was cold, but could not make a fire. The mustangs would smell the smoke in his clothes from miles away. He draped a thick blanket around himself, then took the cotton sack of dried fruit, beef jerky, and nuts from his saddlebag and ate. When he was done, he lay his head on his saddle and was quickly asleep. Warrior grazed in the tall, sweet grasses. As soon as the sun's round shoulders came over the horizon, Bob awoke. He ate, filled his canteen, and saddling Warrior rode away. All day he followed the tracks without hurrying. Near dusk, clouds appeared, piled atop each other like mountains made of fear. Lightning flickered from within them, like candle flames shivering in a breeze. Bob heard the faint but distinct rumbling of thunder. Suddenly, lightning vaulted from cloud to cloud across the curved heavens.
Okay, so far, we have a man. What's his name?
Oh,
Bob. He's riding a horse. What's the horse's name?
warrior.
Warrior. And they're somewhere in the Great Plains, right? Just kind of out there. It doesn't sound like there's like anybody around. They're following some mustangs and hoping to I don't know if he's hoping to catch them or join them as they roam around. I don't really know exactly where this is going. I haven't read it yet. So, but that's kind of where we're at. He's out there by himself. He's got food and water. He didn't build a fire because he doesn't want to smell like fire, because that scares the mustangs away. But that's kind of where we're at. And it sounds like a storm is coming in. So, I'll go ahead and keep going from there. We're at paragraph 10, if you lost track. Paragraph 10. Here we go.
Warrior reared, his front hooves pawing as if trying to knock the white streaks of fire from the night sky. Bob raced Warrior to a nearby ravine as the sky exploded sheets of light. And there, in the distance, beneath the ghostly light, Bob saw the herd of mustangs. As if sensing their presence, Warrior rose into the air once again, this time not challenging the heavens, but almost in greeting. Bob thought he saw the Mustang stallion rise in response as the earth shuddered from the sound of thunder. Then the rain came as hard and stinging as remorse. Quickly, Bob put on his poncho and, turning Warrior away from the wind and the rain, waited. The storm would pass soon, or it wouldn't. There was nothing to do but wait. Finally, the rain slowed and then stopped. The clouds thinned, and there, high in the sky, the moon appeared as white as grief. Bob slept in the saddle, while Warrior grazed on the wet grasses. The sun rose into a clear sky, and Bob was awake immediately. The storm would have washed away the tracks, but they had been going toward the big river. He would go there and wait. By mid-afternoon, he could see the ribbon of river shining in the distance. He stopped, needing only to be close enough to see the horses when they came to drink. Toward evening, he saw a trail of rolling, dusty clouds. In front was the Mustang herd. As it reached the water, the stallion slowed and stopped. He looked around, his head raised, nostrils flared, smelling the air. He turned in Bob's direction and sniffed the air again. Bob tensed. Had he come too close too soon? If the stallion smelled anything new, he and the herd would be gone, and Bob would never find them again. The stallion seemed to be looking directly at him. Bob was too far away to be seen, but he did not even blink his eyes, afraid the stallion would hear the sound. Finally, the stallion began drinking, and the other horses followed. Bob let his breath out slowly. He had been accepted. The next morning, he crossed the river and picked up the herd's trail. He moved Warrior slowly, without sound, without dust. Soon he saw them grazing. He stopped. The horses did not notice him. After a while, he moved forward, slowly, quietly. The stallion raised his head. Bob stopped.
Okay, so we have Bob and Warrior still following them. What do you guys think Bob is hoping to do here? To catch them? Take pictures? Well, hang on, before you think about that part, it did talk about how Bob used to be a slave, which was in 1800s, maybe? It was a while ago. Slaves were outlawed in 1865. Like, you couldn't have slaves in 1865. So he must be free. So it's probably somewhere past 1865, but I wouldn't say that they have cameras just yet. Ones that can take a picture as easily as we can now, at least. They might have had some really, really big ones that, like, you have to sit in front of it for hours to get the picture. But I wouldn't say that he's looking to get pictures of them. Maybe a painting. That could be it instead. So you think that he might tame them, catch them, and make them tame horses? Possible. But that's kind of where we're at. He's following them. He doesn't want them to see him or hear him or smell him. Because what would happen if they knew that he was following them? They'd run away. Wouldn't be able to catch him anymore. So we'll go ahead and keep going. We're on paragraph 17? 17? I think so. Here we go.
When the stallion went back to
18.
grazing, Bob moved forward again. All day, Bob watched the herd, moving only when it moved, but always coming closer. The Mustangs sensed his presence. They thought he was a horse. So did he. The following morning, Bob and Warrior walked into the herd. The stallion eyed them for a moment. Then, as if to test this newcomer, he led the herd off in a gallop. Bob lay flat across Warrior's back and moved with the herd. If anyone had been watching, they would not have noticed a man among the horses. When the herd set out early the next day, it was moving slowly. If the horses had been going faster, it would not have happened. The colt fell to the ground as if she had stepped into a hole and broken her leg. Bob and the horses heard the chilling sound of the rattles. Rattlesnakes didn't always give a warning before they struck. Sometimes, when someone or something came too close, they bit with the fury of fear. The horses whinnied and pranced nervously, smelling the snake and death among them. Bob saw the rattler, as beautiful as a necklace sliding silently through the tall grasses. He made no move to kill it. Everything in nature had the right to protect itself, especially when it was afraid. The stallion galloped to the colt. He pushed at her. The colt struggled to get up, but fell to her side, shivering and kicking feebly with her thin legs. Quickly, she was dead. Already vultures circled high in the sky. The mustangs milled aimlessly. The colt's mother whinnied, refusing to leave the side of her colt.
Okay, so we have, well, what just happened, first of all?
Next, a rattler and a mother was died from rattlesnakes and a baby was
You have that flipped. A colt is the baby, right?
Yeah.
So, the baby horse was bit by a rattlesnake and died. And then the mother horse won't leave it. We also have our, one of our vocabulary words right here. The mustangs milled aimlessly. So what are they kind of doing? Yeah, they're just kind of walking around slowly. They don't really know what to do because they don't really want to leave the colt alone, right? It is dead, but it's still sad. The horses still feel, right? Say it again? Yeah, the mother doesn't really want to leave. Yeah.
So the snakes were coming after mother, and the mother like died by like a broken leg.
No, the colt fell down, and it looked like she might have broken a leg because she fell so quickly. Like maybe she stepped in something, but then they saw that there were rattlesnakes around. So the guy Bob was like, yeah, the rattlesnake must have bit her because maybe the colt just got too close to the rattlesnake, and the instinct is to protect yourself. Yeah, and the instinct of any sort of animal is to protect yourself if something gets too close that you're scared of. So the rattlesnake probably struck and bit the colt because it got too close. So maybe, yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. They're kind of milling around, not really moving. I'm not going forward because they don't want to leave this colt behind. So we are in paragraph 25 where it says the stallion wanted to move the herd. So here we go.
Stallion wanted to move the herd from there and pushed the mare with his head. She refused to budge, and he nipped her on the rump. She skittered away. Before she could return to the colt, the stallion bit her again, this time harder. She ran toward the herd. He bit her a third time, and the herd was off. As they galloped away, Bob looked back. The vultures were descending from the sky as gracefully as dusk.
We also have our next vocabulary word there. She skittered away. Skittered. So the stallion is the leader of the herd, right? He was trying to get the mother to move, so he kind of nipped at her to kind of get her to move so that they could move on. And when she skitters away, what does that mean? She kind of runs away a little bit, right? Runs a little bit to the side so that she's kind of getting away from him. And then she comes back to the colt, and the stallion's like, no, we're leaving. So he kind of bites at her again, and then they start moving along, right? So we are on paragraph 26. Here we go.
It was time to take over the herd. The stallion would not have the heart to fight fiercely so soon after the death of the colt. Bob galloped Warrior to the front and wheeled around, forcing the stallion to stop quickly. The herd, confused, slowed and stopped also. Bob raised Warrior to stand high on his back legs, fetlocks pawing and kicking the air. The stallion's eyes widened. He snorted and pawed the ground, surprised and uncertain. Bob charged at the stallion. Both horses rose on hind legs, teeth bared as they kicked at each other. When they came down, Bob charged Warrior at the stallion again, pushing him backward. Bob rushed yet again. The stallion neighed loudly and nipped Warrior on the neck. Warrior snorted angrily, reared, and kicked out with his forelegs, striking the stallion on the nose. Still maintaining his balance, Warrior struck again and again. The Mustang stallion cried out in pain. Warrior pushed hard against the stallion. The stallion lost his footing and fell to the earth. Warrior rose, neighing triumphantly, his front legs pawing as if seeking for the rungs on which he could climb a ladder into the sky. The Mustang scrambled to his feet, beaten. He snorted weakly. When Warrior made as if to attack again, the stallion turned, whinnied weakly, and trotted away. Bob was now the herd's leader, but would they follow him? He rode slowly at first, then faster and faster. The Mustangs followed, as if being led on ropes.
Okay, so Bob decided it was time to take over the herd. What does that mean?
It means he has to fight the stallion. He's separate.
Good, so the stallion and Warrior kind of fought a little bit. Bob was on his back, guiding Warrior to do what he wanted. And who won? What happened?
Warrior won.
Good, Warrior won. And now it seems that Warrior and Bob are the leader of the herd. I don't think the stallion leaves. I think it stays part of the herd. It's just now Bob and Warrior are the leaders, and the stallion and the rest of the mares are going to follow the Bob and Warrior.
What's the mare?
A mare is a female horse, and then a stallion is a male horse.
There's only one female.
No, there's only one male, I think.
There's one male.
From what I can tell, there's one stallion, so one male, and then there's multiple mares that are following. It does not say if Warrior is a girl or a boy. I think that at the beginning, Bob called Warrior a stallion, a black stallion, so a black male horse.
And has a beard and stuff. The boys are
I think that Warrior is a male horse, yes. Okay, so we are on paragraph 32. We're going to finish it out from here. So it seems that Bob and Warrior are leading this pack, or herd, now. Here we go, 32.
Throughout that day and the next, he rode with the horses. For Bob, there was only the bulging of the horses' dark eyes, the quivering of their flesh, the rippling of muscles and bending of bones in their bodies. He was now sky and plains and grass and river and horse. When his food was almost gone, Bob led the horses on one last ride. A dark surge of flesh flashing across the plains like black lightning. Toward evening, he led the herd up the steep hillside, onto the bluff, and down the slope toward the big corral. The cowboys heard him coming and opened the corral gate. Bob led the herd, but at the last moment he swerved Warrior aside, and the Mustangs flowed into the fenced enclosure. The cowboys leaped and shouted as they quickly closed the gate. Bob rode away from them and back up to the bluff. He stopped and stared out onto the plains. Warrior reared and whinnied loudly. "I know," Bob whispered. "I know. Maybe someday." Maybe someday they would ride with the Mustangs, ride to that forever place where land and sky kissed, and then ride on. Maybe someday.
All right. That is the end of the story. What happened at the very, very end right there?
They took the horses to the corrals and then they went back up to the bluff. Their whole team.
Good. So he was leading the horses, right? And he was leading them back to wherever this corral is. And a corral is where they're going to keep the horses. So in the end, what was the whole reason that Bob and Warrior were out there?
To catch them.
Well, I guess they had a job, right? To catch those horses. But what does Bob really want to do? And Warrior? Good. They want to just kind of be out there. They don't want to have to be doing a job. They want to just be out there with the Mustangs, the wild horses, doing whatever they want to do. But Everybody's got to make some sort of a living. It's hard to do that and just constantly be out in the world like that. Especially at this time, probably, because like we said, it's probably around like somewhere in the late 1800s, we think. Yeah, so we don't know for sure. So we've done our first read. Now we need to complete that chart. So if we go ahead and open up our chart, let's start with our title. Title is Black Cowboy, Wild Horses. Okay? Black Cowboy, Wild Horses. And then, I'll give you a second to write that down. That's okay. Then we've got some questions to answer. Let's start with just the top section. So we need you guys to answer the who, the what, the when. Yeah, the who is more about who is the story about, not who is narrating it. So who was the story about? What were they doing? Where was it? Did it really say where? Kind of a little bit, so see if you can find the where. We talked about the when, because it didn't say exactly when, but we kind of talked about when it was happening. And then why? Why were they out there? Why were they out there? Okay. And then for the annotate, I would like you to go back and highlight one important detail from the story. So I'm going to give you guys about 3 or 4 minutes to work on this part, and then we'll scroll down and do the next part. So go ahead and work on that.
Are you looking for like a certain place to figure out? No, but it kind of talks about it in the background information. That's kind of where they are. Oh, yeah. You want me to go first? Where do I find out? Where do I find out what happened?
Is it like modern day, or did it happen like in the old west? Even if they don't give you a specific time, like a date, you can kind of see what women talk about.
Okay, we'll do about 1 more minute on this top section, and then I'm going to scroll down and we can talk a little bit about the bottom section.
So what does the when mean?
The when is kind of like when the story is taking place. We talked a little bit about it. Yeah, we kind of talked about it because Elijah asked if maybe Bob was going to take pictures of them, and we talked about the time period and that cameras probably weren't super around yet. They might have had like those really. Yep. Yeah, what is what it's about?
Well, I kind of mixed the who and what is it about.
That's okay. If you're answering them in like complete sentences, you can mix them all together into one sentence.
And then I put like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Y, what is the Y?
Why is kind of like why are people or horses in this case reacting the way that they did in the story? So you can kind of talk about why did the horses react to Bob the way that they do.
To show that horses acting wild.
That works, yeah. Okay, so as you're finishing that up, I'm just going to scroll down and talk about those bottom ones. The connect is ideas where you connect to anything else that we might have read. So connect to other stories. Yeah. Maybe to a rodeo, yeah. Possible. So connect it to other stories you've read, to some people that maybe you know people that do something like this. Connect it to yourself if you have ridden a horse or something. I don't know. Maybe movies if you connect to a movie. So try and connect it to one other thing. And then for the respond, write a 2 to 3 sentence summary. So just tell me very quickly, what was this story about? You might even be able to use the who, what, when, where, and why. Yeah, that probably works. All right, so I'm going to give you guys about, what time is it? 8:39. I'm going to give you guys until 8:43. That's 4 minutes. Work on these 4 sections, please.
Remember the Disney movie called Spirit?
Yeah, I like that one.
What
about the man who snowy river? You have a whole. Yeah. No, remember, yeah.
I don't watch movies. Well, okay, I watch movies, but I don't watch Wild West.
The second one, like,
You take your pears, or whatever fruit you want. Slice them up, put them in a bucket. Put your sugar in it, with water. And if you can't get yeast, get bread. Put bread in there, put the lid on it. You gotta stash it somewhere hot for at least a couple weeks until it's like bubbling.
Okay,
And then you just strain it through an old slot and enjoy.
sounds good.
It used to be trash. Sometimes you
Can I
find
put
it.
on the next one?
It smells like real alcohol.
Can I start on the next one? Because I can answer to you.
The comprehension check?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Got about 1 more minute, and then we are going to move on to that comprehension check. There's a lag going if you want to.
Oh, yes, I do.
Definitely, anytime this don't give you guys some work in class, I think of it. So you don't have to go back and do it later on your time. What's that?
Alrighty, guys. So I think we've got enough time on this first read check. Chart, not check. Same thing. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close it. And then we do have that comprehension check. So we're going to finish off with the comprehension check today and be done. Because I think it's only 3 questions. Okay, we might do one more section after this. It's pretty short. So we're going to do this pretty quickly. You're going to answer them on your own because we're all able to do this. So, first question, who is warrior? Don't answer it out loud. Type it into a complete sentence, please. Who is warrior? Okay, so I'll give you about a minute and a minute and a half to type out who warrior is, please. And who is warrior? And if you don't know, go back and look at the story. You don't have to do it all from memory. It is there for you to use. I just sneezed and I went away. Sorry. Well, we're going to get to number 3. Hang on. Sit tight. Okay. Please type it into a complete sentence. Like I've talked about, you are 6th graders. You know how to write a complete sentence, so I do expect that. Okay. Number 2 here is, what do Bob and Warrior dream of doing someday? So that's at the very, very end. It's actually pulled up on my screen. You can reread that last part that's on my screen. What do they hope to do one day? And write that in a complete sentence, please. Or sentences if you need multiple sentences. But what do they hope to do and dream of doing someday? Mm-hmm.
You guys know what they're talking about when they talk about when the land and the sky kiss? The horizon, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you look out into the distance where the sky and the land meet, you can just kind of go on forever.
Alrighty. And then the last one said, I guess you can't really do that one very well, can you? It says, confirm your understanding of the text by making a set of sketches, which are drawings, of the story's most important events. Very difficult to draw on a computer where you can only type in that box, right? Yeah, let's just, you can even use the summary you already wrote. Let's just do a 2 to 3 sentence summary right there. And if you have the ability to copy and paste because you already wrote a summary, go for it. So just a quick summary that tells me what that story was about. 2 to 3 sentences, please. Okay. Huh? To draw on there? I don't think so. Not in that notebook, at least. I don't know if copy and pasting a picture will work. But a picture isn't going to tell me, like one picture won't tell me what the story is about. But I don't think it'll copy and paste into there.
So we can both comprehension.
Yep. So I'm gonna give you guys about 3 minutes. Let's see, it's 8:48. So I'll give you guys until 8:51 to finish up the comprehension check and the first read, please. No, we might. What? Well, I already talked about number 3, and that instead of drawing it, you're gonna write a 2 to 3 sentence summary about like the story. What was the story about? In 2 to 3 sentences. Yeah. I did say that too. It helps if you're not reading when I'm giving instructions. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead and finish that up. I'm just going to look ahead to see what we have time for, because I don't think, no, we don't want to do that one. We'll do that tomorrow. Would you guys like to do the research section where you look up some different aspects? Okay, I'll find that really quick. And that'll be what we end on, the research. So let me pull that up in my book. Okay, so if we're looking at the research, or wait, do we need another minute to finish the comprehension check, or are we good for the next part? 1 more minute? Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute, and then we'll look at the research. I'm just going to start typing it out, but you guys keep working on that comprehension check. Alrighty. So, if you're not done with the comprehension check, just keep working on it. I'm going to leave this up for you guys to finish out the class with. So our research to clarify part here, we're going to choose one of the 3, just to kind of give you a better idea of kind of the Old West, about those types of horses, the Mustangs that are wild, and just kind of research, Google a little bit. You don't have to go too in depth, and write 2 to 3 sentences about what you learned. So you can choose the dangers of Mustangs. So if you approach a wild horse, is that good or bad? What's going to go down if you do that? Number 2, you could choose the Mustang's natural environments. So where would you typically find a Mustang?
That one I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, you might not need the internet for that one, so maybe you don't choose that one. Choose the one that you want to get the most information about, right? Or number 3, look up the life of an Old West wild cowboy. I wouldn't say that a cowboy's life nowadays is similar to the Old West ones. So look up the Old West cowboy, because we are going to be doing actually some research on Old West cowboys this week. So maybe you do that one so that you can have a little bit of an idea of what we're going to look up later. But you guys have about 5 minutes until class is over. So I'm going to go ahead and have you guys work on that research section and finish up the class doing that. So Do your 2 to 3 sentences, and when you're done, those of you online will be able to head out. Those of you here will get to keep working on things.